Peter Hurley, Master of the Headshot, welcome to DPReview. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start. I mean, for people who don't necessarily know who you are
I am Peter Hurley. I would say, I'm a portrait photographer, but I definitely specialize in headshots. I shoot headshots on a daily basis, and I fell into what I consider headshot land a while ago. I was an actor. I got my headshots taken, and headshot photographers in New York were making a pretty penny. I was the actor, model, bartender dude that couldn't make a buck. So I was in a bar till like 4 a.m. and I was like, this isn't gonna work for very much longer. I was a terrible actor. And I was like, and modeling was okay. I had a decent modeling gig. But I had picked up a camera, fortunately, and I had gone through the headshot process. So I was like, these photographers in New York have something going on with this headshot thing. Let me try it. And that was amazing. It was just, it still amazes me to this day that I pulled it off.
So you've been an actor, you've been a bartender, you've been a sailor as well, right?
Yeah. Sailing actually got me into photography. So I graduated from Boston University with a degree in human physiology, which I had no idea what I was going to do with. So that summer, I ended up working in a sail loft on the Jersey Shore, and my boss gave me like a week off to race in this national championship, which I won. So I decided the boat I was sailing at the time became an Olympic class, and a bunch of my friends were trying to train for the Olympics. So I decided to do it. I started training, and a designer from Donna Karan met me and said, you need sponsorship, I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna get you, we need to do pictures, we need to put a whole press kit together. And I was like, and she was just cool. I mean, she just was like an angel that flew in and helped me. Actually, the New York Times did a story about us, and it was A Sailor Finds His Angel, which was really cool. It came out, and it was awesome. So she got me, a photographer came to the Jersey Shore to shoot me sailing and take some pictures of me, and I had never modeled before. I didn't know what to do. They brought some Donna Karan clothes, and next thing I know, I'm sponsored by DKNY for the Olympics, for the training I was doing. And she calls me one day, she goes, Polo is looking for real sailors to be in this ad campaign. Do you mind going up to the Ralph Lauren offices in New York and meeting with a designer there? And I was like, what? And I was like in high school. I think I grew up in New Jersey, and I was a total preppy like kid. I was like poloed out to the nines. So I was like, are you kidding me? I want to like go meet these polo people? I was like, that's crazy. That was like I wore all that stuff. Anyway, I go and meet the designer, and he then sends me over to an art director, and the art director takes some pictures of me. And a couple weeks later, they said, okay, we're going to send you to Miami to do this photo shoot. And I was like, well, I'm really busy training for the Olympics. I was like, how much are you paying for it? For me to take time off, blah, blah, blah. And they said a number that was really, really low. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And if I hadn't done that, my life would be a complete change. And I can't believe I said no. But 2 weeks later, they said, okay, here's your plane ticket. And I was like, I said no. They said, oh, well, we're paying you this, which was like 5 times the amount that I had said no to, or 6 times. It was a lot more. And I was like, okay, I'm going. Lo and behold, the photographer on the job is Bruce Weber. Now, at the time, I had no clue who Bruce Weber was. I mean, if anybody out there doesn't know who Bruce Weber is, they got to look him up, because he's just a huge inspiration to me. So I get to the set, and there's this guy jumping around with a camera, and he's really cool, and it was amazing. And we got boats. The boat that I was training for in the Olympics, I was friends with the guy who built them. And I said, look, I'm doing this shoot for Polo. Do you mind sending some boats down? And he's like, sure. Boom, bunch of boats. And Bruce just threw me on a boat. I sailed. Bruce, I hung out with him, and he just took pictures of me. And that first day, he put me, like, I'm getting shot with Tyson Beckford right next to me, and Bridget Hall on one, another side. Was amazing. So these big superstar models, and we became friends. Long story short, I ended up getting a modeling career out of those pictures, and Bruce and I remained friends for years, and he just always encouraged me to pick up a camera. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know why. I've thanked him a million times. But without his encouragement, it would never happen.
Was it that experience? I mean, did you start taking pictures with him?
No, I don't know why, he just would always say, get a camera, why aren't you taking pictures? I was like, what am I going to take pictures of? So I was like, so finally I went into this little store I'll never forget, it was like, it's not there anymore, it's this little used camera store on 17th Street. And I said to the guy, my friend told me to get a camera. And I don't know if the guy would have known Bruce or not, but I was like, I just need a camera. He's like, well, what are you taking pictures? Like, I was like, I don't know, a camera. And it was film those days. So I was like, he's like, what's your budget? And I don't remember, I wish I had the receipt. I don't know what I paid for this camera, but it was a Nikon FE2. It was like this old thing. And I remember like all the pictures from it. I took great pictures with it. But he's like, what are you photographing? I said, well, I'm a model and I'm probably gonna just take pictures of my friends. And he's like, well, what lens do you want? Well, I didn't know anything about millimeters or how wide anything was. I knew nothing. I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, you're taking pictures of your friends. You're going to do portraits. I was like, yeah. He goes, here's 100 millimeter. And I was like, okay. So I get the camera and I get the lens and I'm over at my friend's house who's a model and she's beautiful. And I was like, I just got this camera. Can I take some pictures of you? And it was a New York apartment, which was about the size of this. So I was like, okay, let's go. And I put the camera up and I was like, I couldn't fit her in the, I was like, I can't fit anything in this camera. I can't fit anything. I was like, but I didn't have any more budget to buy any other lenses, so it was the only lens that I had. So I shot a couple of my friends with that lens. Once I got outside, I was okay with the 100 millimeter, but inside a New York apartment, it was not, that might have been the thing that could have started me with headshots. I could have been doing headshots at that time.
That's where I thought this was going.
No, I didn't even think about it. So then, this is so Bruce and I said, Bruce, I got a camera. He's like, great. And, but I didn't shoot many people, and I didn't ever think I'd charge for it. I just didn't think that way. And he's like, so what are you shooting? So I've always been patriotic. Like when I was training for the Olympics, I was like really USA all the way, baby. I mean, it's on my sail. I love it. I love the American flag. So I would go around on castings and like walk down the streets of New York, and if there was I'd shoot some flags. So I was going around shooting flags. I was like, Bruce, I'm shooting some flags. I don't know. This was just what I just did. I don't know why I was doing that. So long story short, a few years go by. I'm shooting flags up a storm. No, I wasn't. And I was in Europe, and Bruce was shooting something in Sevilla, in Spain. And he invited me to come stay with him in this house with my wife and another photographer friend of mine named Maria Montoya, we were traveling around the south of Spain sailing. I mean, not sailing, why did I say sailing? Shooting, like doing some photography stuff. So he was photographing me with my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend. Anyway, I get to Bruce's place. He's like, I said, I got this camera. And she goes, why don't you get a serious, like that thing's like, and it was falling apart. Like the camera was old, I only had the one lens. He's like, get a serious camera. And I was like, he's right, I should get a serious camera. So I told this guy, Ramiro Montoya, give me a serious, and all this is in my book. I just wrote it in this book. So we go back to this store in Madrid, this little shop, and I buy my first, what I consider my first professional camera, which was a Mamiya 645. And the reason why I bought that is because when I modeled at the time, I rarely was ever photographed with a 35 millimeter. Mm. Most of the guys were always on medium format. It was like the Mamiya RZ, the 645, the Contact 645. Bruce shot the Pentax 6.7, which was just a beast and awesome. I love that camera. So I was like, all right, if I'm gonna actually try and pursue this and do some charging, I was like, I want to do it big. I was like, so I put some money into that system, and I got back to New York. I went to B&H and I bought a dark room, and I put it in my mom's basement, and I started shooting all black and white, and I started shooting my friends, I started processing in the apartment during the week, and then I would go on weekends to my mom's home and in the basement do all the printing. So she had prints hanging all over her house. It was crazy.
So how quickly did that become a business?
There was a time where I was sick of bartending and I was like, I got to make money somehow. And I don't know. I didn't know how. I was like, I don't want to be in the bar. I had actually, after that trip, what happened was I went to train for the Olympics again for Sydney. I made the United States sailing team, but I was done with the Olympic trials because it's kind of complicated. I made the team, so 5 guys make the team, but the first guy goes to the Olympics. So that guy went. And they tell you, you're on the U.S. sailing team because at the Olympic trials you finished 4th, but you don't get to go to the Olympics and you're done. So I went to Europe, I got back from Europe and I was like, okay, now I've got to figure out how to make some money and do this. So I was broke. My girlfriend and I met in Miami and I was like, you got to move to New York. I didn't have a place to live, so what do? You call the ever-providing older brother. And you say, hey, you've got an apartment in New York, can I crash? Oh, by the way, can I bring my girlfriend with me? So this was the best thing. So I'm in his apartment and I go, and I got the camera, and I got the darkroom at my mom's, and I started shooting models that were in agencies that I knew, and then I hadn't shot any actors yet, or headshots yet, but I was shooting these models, and I shot some from my agency and I showed the agent the pictures and she's like, these are really good, you could shoot whoever you want. So I just started doing that. And I set up, I got my first set of lights, I set them up in my brother's living room, which wasn't much bigger than this. About 6 months go by, my brother's not charging me any rent. I'm paying I can barely afford the cable bill. I'm paying electric and cable and it was killing me. And my brother's like, you're a loser. You got to get out of here. What are you doing here? You can't stay here. You got your girlfriend where? It's he had a 3-bedroom. So I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like a complete loser. So I was like, okay. I had some money in savings though. So I was like, and my wife actually at the time kind of carried us because she was a successful model. She was doing pretty well. She had some commercials running. She was acting and doing commercials. So it was really, she provided for us at that time. So I knew I wanted one thing. I was like, when I was looking for an apartment, I was like, I want a big, huge window that I can shoot natural light in. I want it to face south. So all I was looking for, and I don't want any obstruction. I don't want any trees. I don't want another building in there. So I went on the West Side Highway. I looked around and I found this building that had no obstruction to the south, a big window in a studio apartment, and I was like, I'm going for it. And I got it, and I plopped my butt on that windowsill, and I started my headshot business. I started it right there with natural light. I put 2 V-flats behind the subject, and I bought a couch that folded into a futon that was white, so I got a little bit of bounce from below, and I created this white box, and that's how I created my look.
So it means that sounds, don't need to denigrate this, but it sounds pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
No, it's so simple. Yeah, anybody could do it. That's why I get questions all the time. Well, I can't afford this. What would you do? And I'm like, I would plop myself on a windowsill, be it with the light coming in behind you, and start shooting beautiful natural light. Now, first of all, I made lights with Westcott now. This flex kit thing that came out. I've tested all sorts of light. I did a DVD tutorial with f-stoppers called Illuminating the Face. I work with light. I'm a photographer. Work with light every day. All of it's trying to emulate natural light. What's the problem with using natural light? Why are photographers afraid? Why do they think they need to overlight stuff? I mean, I think you get beautiful work. I think the basis should be of your technique should be based in natural light, and then go work from there on other stuff.
So for anyone watching who's sort of trying to get started doing what you do, and you're known for these headshots, these portraits, what's your kind of minimum recommended setup for anyone who's trying to get better at it?
Well, I mean, I think you need a DSLR, and you need a quality portrait lens. Like me, I had a 100mm. That could work. If you're in confined spaces, go for a 50 or an 85 or whatever. I don't think you need to trick it out. I don't think the gear is going to hold you back. I think there's other things besides gear that can hold you back. I run a site called, the Headshot Crew. And, I'm always asking people, what are you shooting at? What are you shooting at? And people, like some people out there just are shooting the most amazing stuff with cameras that are 10 years old. And digital cameras 10 years ago were not anywhere where we are today. I went medium format digital 10 years ago, and I loved that in 2004, and I love that back. But that was a digital back, it wasn't a DSLR. Yeah. So the DSLRs from 10 years ago were different beasts than what we have today. So I don't think the equipment should hold people back. And I think, having current gear and the best gear is amazing. And I think it's got bells and whistles that can help us do our job easier. Obviously you can have more megapixels, and I love having my megapixels and stuff like that now, but I don't want it to be an excuse for anybody out there to take a decent portrait.
Sure. So what's your go-to lens when you just have to have one lens in your bag?
The 100 millimeter macro.
Still?
Yeah.
Millimeter.
Yeah, well, because now I'm a headshot guy. Back then, that's the same problem, right? I'd be stuck with that lens back then. But seriously, I came to Seattle, and it's a short trip, and I needed to do some headshots. I brought the 100 millimeter macro, and I threw in the 24-70. I shoot a Canon 5D Mark III right now, and I use the 100 millimeter macro lens from them, and the 24-70, and I'm covered. I'm like, that's, I'm a portrait guy. Like the person, I'm not gonna worry. I don't need tons of length. I need, and if I'm in a tight spot, I can go with the 24-70 and have some fun with it. But it just lightened my whole kit. I don't have to take as much stuff. Now, I've broken down a lot of gear over the years, so I'm always erring on the side of caution. Mm-hmm. So I always make sure I'm covered. So I did bring 2 bodies. And then, the lenses and stuff like that. But just to make sure, if you're doing a commercial job, you got to be covered. So I always say, I don't think I need multiple lenses, but I want multiple lenses that could get the job done in case for some reason I drop a lens or something. I got to make sure I'm covered.
So a lot of people do, you said that one of the reasons you started out doing headshots is you were a model and you got to know photographers doing them. How do you keep your work distinctive?
Well, the one thing, and I stress this to all photographers, is creating a brand. Making sure people know why they're hiring you. Mm-hmm. Very early on, it was very difficult. So in New York, when I started headshot photography, there was a pecking order of photographers. These people were at the top, and then there were these people that you could choose, and then there was all the way down to the $99 a headshot guy, or whatever. And I got in at the $200 mark or whatever. And these people had already created the market for the $1,000 headshot, which was amazing to me. And I was like, I got to figure out how to tap into that, which was pretty cool. But I wanted to create a look to my work that people could latch onto for a couple of reasons. One is it allowed me I didn't have to be flexible. So if an agent called and said, we need, an agent told an actor, we need shots of you outside on the street with a brick wall behind you, right? I don't do that. I wasn't doing that. I didn't have any shots on my website of me doing that. So I wasn't their guy. And I think back then it was hard to turn down that job because that agent wanted that. But I think in the end, the fact that I did turn those down actually propelled me into a different hemisphere, because they were like, he's sticking to his guns. I stuck to what I knew. So on my website, I only showed, I shoot white background, I shoot gray, I shoot black. Those are my 3 go-tos just because I'm lazy. I turn the strobes off so the fall off goes gray, and then I sell a product called ProBoard that goes black, so I use the black. But back then, it was all white. So I didn't show another shot on my website for headshots that wasn't white background, landscape with the head chopped off. So these were my 3 things. So this kind of became my signature, and people were like, well, why are you chopping people's heads off? I was doing it because I like the proximity of the image. I like being in tight on people. I like getting in there. So in order for me to be in there, I think the information below the collar. So for instance, you've got a tie on. If I photographed you and I wanted to be tight with that 100mm macro, for me it's very important that I get the bottom of your tie in the shot, right? Because of the way I like to see the tie. I want to get the style of your hair because it's kind of cool the way you do it. You got it going on up there. But I don't need like to go above, because if I go higher, then I got to come back more, and then I lose what I consider juice. The juice of the shot is in the composition. So I'm going to keep the juice and I'm going to stay in tight. I'm going to crop your head a little bit. So I did that, and agents would be like, no, you don't like that. You can't crop the head. You can't do this. You can't do that. Well, they were saying that while I was busting through the pecking order. So I just went nuts because I was really driven to make it happen. And it was cool because people responded to the work, because I think what the key was, I created a look, and then on top of that look, I went for expression. What happens when people get in front of cameras is they get really stiff, they get uncomfortable, they get nervous, they get flat, they don't know what to do. And I knew at the outset that that was what my work was going to be about. It wasn't going to be about the white background and all that technical stuff looked good, but if the person was still blank, like, they get in front of cameras, they're talking to you like normal, and then I go like this with the camera, and they go, it's weird.
So how do you manage that? I mean, how do you break down that tension?
Back then I didn't know. I was like blown away. I was like, why are you doing that? I don't know. They'd be like, I don't know why. I'm like, well, stop. Okay. And I'll go like this, and they'll go, no. Did you feel that? You just got weird. And they're like, yeah, I know. Well, stop. No, I don't know. What? I'm like, you got to look in there, and you can't be weird. Like, just be normal. And they wouldn't do it. And the thing is that for me, my training ground of becoming a good director as a photographer, because for me it's all about direction. I work on my direction every day. I don't think you ever master direction. I don't think any photographer ever goes, oh my gosh, I'm mastered my direction, now I can move on. I'm like, no, I'm a better director today than I was a year ago. It's like phenomenal. So I work on it every day. So back then it was like the big aha moment was when I started photographing my friends. There was a reproductions place in town so the actors would get the shots done. You would give them a print. So I'd go in the darkroom, I'd give them a print, and then they'd go reproduce it. So it was all black and white back then, and they did it, it's not like, the printers we have today. They did it that way. And they had all the headshot photographers' books in there. So I went in and I said to the guy, the manager, I said, I want to put one of my books in. He says, all right, well, if you're any good, I'll put a book in there for you, but you need to have 20 pictures. And I hadn't shot anybody yet, so I was like, 20. I got on the phone, I started calling my friends. I was like, get over here, I need you. And I remember this one girl, one of the first ones, I took her up on my roof. I wasn't shooting, I don't know what, I was trying to find my style. So I put the camera up, and she did that blank face thing, and I was like, look, I don't know what to say to you, but you have to do something because I don't know what to do, And she's like, okay. I was like, why don't you try a monologue? And that didn't work. She's like saying her monologue. I was like, well, you can't say it while I'm photographing because your mouth is moving. So you can't say that. That didn't work. I was like, what are we going to do? I was like, I don't know. It was that day that I was like, that's it. For me, it wasn't about the technical. It was about that. It was like, what do I say to people? So I started working on it that day. I've been working on it ever since, and it's my life's purpose to work on direction every day.
People feel comfortable in front of cameras.
Oh, it's amazing.
So what's your
it's
secret?
So
What's
cool. My best trick is to, I worked with this psychologist. We started a company called Sci-Photology. We go into companies and we do leadership trainings and stuff like that, and we use the camera as a tool to teach people about themselves and about, and to get this cohesive environment in these companies, it's been amazing. It's so interesting to me that the psychologist would actually be interested in it. But I photographed her on a job I did, and she was like, you use cognitive therapy? I was like, what? And in 2009, I opened a Twitter account. I put 90% photographer, 90% therapist, 10% photographer. I almost caught myself. Because the 10% photography is done. Like I worked on my technical, I was really critical about how technical I was. But once the person's in front of your camera, your technical has to be done. Like if you're on a big job and your technicals, and you're working on your technical, that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. You know, you should have, I mean, obviously if things go wrong, you work on it, but your lighting and everything should be prepped and everything should be very similar. I do these lighting tutorials and stuff, and I call it go for light. It's the light I go for when I'm shooting, you know, for me it's a headshot or whatever. It's light that I know. It's stuff that I've already practiced a gazillion times. I know it, so I don't have to worry about it. So there's no variables in that. Light's not going to change if I turn it on, if it's a, you know, a product or a strobe or whatever, or my lights or whatever. It's not going to change. It's going to be there. But the variable that is going to change will always be the person. So I have to be 90% therapist. So I need to create an atmosphere for them. And in order to do that, I want them to behave as if the camera's not there. So, you know, I do a bunch of things. I call it, you know, I throw curveballs at them. Like I do things that they're not expecting. And I think once you build a system that works for you, it's like mine works with everybody. It took years. Took a long time. I used to shoot a lot of actors, and I used to always put them in, I'd be like, all right, let's imagine that you're in a film right now and you're playing this, you know, and oh, by the way, I saw that movie you were in. Absolutely loved. I thought the best scene was the scene with the wiffle balls. Amazing, right? And now they're actors, so they start laughing, they're having fun with it, and I was like, and then I'll go off and say, you know, talk about the lead that they were playing. Anyway, I can do anything with that because I was an actor and I could create a storyline. I started shooting a lot. What's happening in the headshot industry right now is that it's changed completely. Years ago, it was like actors needed headshots. Now everybody needs one. Like if you are on LinkedIn, you don't have a pro headshot, you don't look pro. That's not cool. If you are, you know, on Facebook and you update your profile shot, it gets more likes than any other thing you post all year long, usually. Like these people have a digital identity. If you Google yourself, what shots come up? It better be a darn good headshot. It should be. At least the first one. I mean, it should be a headshot of yourself. People want to see your face. They don't want to see you 20 feet away. So that changed. So now I get a ton of people hiring me for headshots just for personal branding purposes and whatever they need. So if you had thrown, years ago, I would get some CEO and corporate stuff. And they'd get in front of my camera. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't put this person in a movie. I can't do that scenario. And the CEO walked in and I was like, I'm certainly not going to tell him to act like he's playing a crack addict who just stubbed his toe.
You didn't know how to relate necessarily.
No, I couldn't do it. So I was like doing what most photographers do is they point the camera at the person and they go turn to the left, turn to the right. You know, they might say jawline out or front shoulder down or turn this way, turn that way. Then they do positive reinforcement. That was good. Great, nice, wonderful. And that's all I did. So I'd be like, turn this way, turn that way, that looks good, click. Turn this way, turn that way, try this, try that. And it creates no spark. It doesn't create any life in front of the camera. It puts the person on guard. You don't want your people on guard. You want your people on guard. You want them unfiltered. You want them to like do things in there that they do with their face as if a camera wasn't there, so that, you know, I always love pictures where, like if I see a picture of my wife or my kids where they're making faces that like, I know them. So I know their face and I know when it's flat in front of a camera face. And I'm like, I want the people I photograph, you know, spouses or whatever, girlfriends or brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, to look at the picture and be like, oh my gosh, that's so you. You can't get that unless you get their brain from thinking they're in front of a camera. So what I do is I use different things to occupy their brain so that they can't think about the camera.
So what's an example of a Peter Hurley curveball for?
Turn your hips slightly right now towards the Canadian border.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, why would I say turn to the left if I could say turn something like somewhere? Now, most photographers would be like, oh my gosh, but most people would think I don't care which way they turn. I'm just saying it to get there. If you think of that, there's no way you could think of your face and you're in front of a camera. If you're, as humans, we really like to get things right. So I always play with them in ways that they can't, and then you can throw them. So another curveball, one of my favorites is, and try this right now. I'd love to see if you could pull this off. You're like, what's he gonna do? So I say things that sound like they mean something, but they don't mean anything. And when I first start working with people, they don't know I'm doing that. So they don't know what to do. So could you just, I don't want you to turn to the left, but just twilch slightly to the left.
Twilch.
Yes, just slightly. Just a little bit. Don't overdo it. A little bit.
I have no idea how to do that.
Right, but you would.
I do know which direction the Canadian border is in now.
You do? Where is it? It's that way? Okay, good. So I'll say something like that. So that's just, I make up words. But so I'll say that to see, and they'll be like, so twitch, and they'll go like this. And I'll be like, that was pretty good, but it would be better if you twilched.
So what's the squinch? I've heard this.
It's another one.
Yeah.
I'm like a wordsmith. I'm coming up with words.
Videos where you mention the squinch a lot.
Yeah.
What's the squinch?
Well, the squinch, I needed a word for it. So I was petrified when I started taking headshots in New York. My thing was all about my aesthetic, and what I wanted to flow through these expressions that I was making was confidence. Like, I wanted the confidence. I wanted people to look confident. People don't look confident in front of cameras. Actors need to look confident because the casting director wants to hire them for a job. They want to be like, I've done casting before, and I want the person who hires me to be like, he's awesome. He got us the best person, So I think casting directors feel the same way. They want that director to be psyched that they did the best job, so that their, whatever their cast is just amazing, and then they have great people to work with. So what I decided was I was shooting a lot of new actors that needed headshots that were green and timid and shy and petrified. I was like, let me up their game. So I actually had a casting director in New York said, Peter Hurley makes people look like they already made it. And that was because I used to work on their confidence. I made them fake confidence through squinching. But at the time I didn't know it was squinching, so I used to say squint. I said squint more times in my studio than you could imagine, so people would go like this. And I was like, no, it's not really that. It's not squinting. I was like, what is it? I was like, so years later, it took me a long time to discover this. I realized I started to look at pictures. If you look at a lot of celebrities do it, they squinch. Now I've coined the term. It's gotten a definition behind it. It's got the video. The video keeps going viral. It's going crazy. It's got like 3 million, 2 million hits maybe. The jawline's got 3 million, but this other one has like 2 million. But I defined it. And let's see if you can do it.
Okay.
So what happens is when we're engaged in normal behavior, like, we don't think about our expressions, right? Like, are you consciously, now that I'm looking at your face, like maybe you're thinking about what your face is doing? Yeah, but you have no idea what your face is doing right now, do you?
No.
Your brain is trying to tell you, though. It doesn't know. It does not know. I'm telling you it doesn't know, because I know, because if people got in front of my camera and their brain knew what their face looked like, they wouldn't make the face they make. There would be no reason to make that. Why'd you make that face? I don't know. My brain told me it was fine. Well, it wasn't fine. It looked like that. And I show them, I shoot tethered, so they look at it. I'm like, why'd you do that? And then you try and fix them, and then they don't, and they're looking at the picture as I'm shooting it. I'm like, really tough ones that don't take my direction, I just put the tethered shooting right in front of them, and I'm like, I'll take it, you look at it, and then change it, and they're like this.
So the squinch is something you can teach people to look good on camera.
Yeah, people look good when they're squinching. All right, let me get into it. So people look good when they squinch. So normally in our everyday lives, our subconscious controls our expression, and our eyes look relaxed and they close a little bit more than when you're in front of a camera. When you are uncertain or fearful, eyes open. Mm-hmm. So everybody, you get in front of a camera. I modeled for 8 years. You put me in front of a camera, I diminish a little bit. Everybody has different levels. There's 4 different levels when you get in front of a camera. It's either you own it, you pose, you diminish, or you avoid. I came up with these with this psychologist I work with on this sci-photology thing. And we created what we call as the PQ, the sci-photology quotient. So you can go in and take a survey and find out whether you are an avoider, a diminisher, a poser, or you own it in front of a camera. And it's very rare that you own it. About 7% of the population owns it. About 18% avoid, 60% diminish, and the balance are posers. So the diminishers are a big, so you just get in front of a camera and you become a little less of yourself. Mm-hmm. When the photographer takes a picture of that, do you think the person likes it? The person goes, that's not me. No, it's a little less of you because you diminished. What do you think was going to happen? A camera's in your face. That's what's going to happen. So what I had to do was go in and teach people how to concoct these expressions until the comfort level rises enough that they actually start to behave that way, right, and get confident. Yeah, the rapport happens, but it takes a while. So the concoction is the squinch. So let's just do it. We get in front of cameras, we go like this. It's just weird. So what I try and do is I was like, don't open your eyes like that. Actually, just let your eyes relax a little bit, which they never do. So they're like this. And then I'm like, squint, and they would be like this. So it's not really squinting, but squinching is narrowing the distance between your pupil and your lower eyelid. So you're just lifting your lower lids.
Okay.
No, you're squinting. Stop that. What are you doing? Stop fooling around. Get control of yourself. Come on.
The camera can see you more clearly than it can see me.
That's all right. You're getting there. No, the upper lids are going down. Why are you doing that? Just use your vertebral ligament. That's another thing I'll do. I'll be like, can you tense your vertebral ligament for me? I need you to tense your vertebral ligament. And that's the other thing is people want to be intelligent in front of cameras. So when you say something like tense your vertebral ligament, nobody knows what. Like I've shot plastic surgeons and stuff, and I'm sure they'd be like, how are you telling me what the, like they would know, they'll be like, yeah, exactly. And then, but there is a ligament under here that, so the bicularis oculi is this muscle that surrounds the eye, and it controls a ligament that brings your lower eyelids up.
Right.
So when people want to look cool, they do this.
Okay. I need a mirror before I can really do this.
You need a mirror. So
really
see, that's the thing is that I have people practice in front of the mirror. So this is a good squinch. This would be what you see. Like the difference is so minute. So
yeah, okay.
Compared to
the second one's scary.
It's just right. It's like people don't walk around like that. So they get in front of cameras like that. So that was the biggest thing. And I saw it. It was so prevalent in the headshot scene in New York that I was like, I'm going to wreck this territory. Let's just go in and make everybody do that. And I just stuck with it, and people did it, and they loved it. And I went like, and this casting director said he's the guy. He's like, he makes people look like they've already made it. And then everybody just started coming, and here I am.
So you've got natural light, we've got the squinch, basic 100mm macro lens. I mean, what is there any other advice you'd give to someone, really simple advice, to try and build a business doing what you do?
The best advice I always give, I say this all the time. If you want to be a portrait photographer, get a person in front of your camera every day. Work on your direction every day. When something works, you write it down. You bounce an idea off of them. A lot of people look at me and my teachings and stuff like that, and I coach a lot. But I didn't have this years ago. I used to be timid and shy, believe it or not. But you can grow out of that. I know.
I don't believe
No, I was a mess. I was a disaster area. Now I'm, way more out there. But because that can be learned anyway. But I get people who are like, look, I'm not like you. I can't do it the way you do it. Can't talk to the person the way you talk to them. And I'm like, you have to find your own way. I just have to guide you towards the concept. I can give you a concept of how I do it. You have to figure out how you would do it. And then yours might be quiet. It might be a tiny little gesture. It might be something, it could be anything. But you have to find out what works. And as things work, I used to write everything down. I used to have and then I put it in a script. So when you're starting out, you're not going to be as flexible from person to person. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to be able to read people as well. I read people really well. Like I could take people and fire. I know somehow after doing it, I'm guessing I've shot somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people 3 feet in front of me. So I can figure out ways to talk to them that will get the result that I want. Everything's concocted to get the result that I want. But years ago, I wasn't that good, so I would just have a list that I would go down. Stuff that I knew worked. When I got down the list, if it worked with one person, didn't work with another, I just skipped it. Like I'd try it and I'd be like, oh, that didn't, I'm not going. Because I would do, for instance, one of the examples is I used to use words. I don't use words that much anymore, but words worked really well, and they work really well with some people. Some people, they fall flat. So you can't say 10 words to somebody that the words don't work. But if the person...
What's an example, like a word would be like a look or
like,
expression?
Yeah, like look delighted.
Right, okay.
And if they go, like the word didn't work, like look delighted, they should go like, I'm delighted, yeah. You know, look sneaky, that's my favorite one.
That's almost a squinch.
Yeah, well they should squinch. To look sneaky, you gotta squinch a little bit. So if they do that, I'm like, oh, the words are great. I'll go down a list. In my book, I've got a list of like a gazillion of them. I don't know how many are in there. But if the word falls flat, then I gotta move and shake and do something else. So I had the list. I had the list of words. I had the whole thing. It was like a shtick. And it got me to the point where it got me to handle a wide variety of people. And until I memorized how I do it, now it changes. Like it changed completely. It changes so much because I'm focused on it every day. I don't focus on anything technical. Like I don't change my lighting or my setup, or I change to I got the new Flex Kit lights I'm shooting on prototypes right now. The new ones are coming out in October. I'm hopefully gonna get a 5DSR soon. I think that's the camera that I want to start shooting. I'm shooting a 5D Mark III now. That doesn't change much. I'm shooting into the same software. Like nothing really changes. What changes is the person. Mm-hmm. So if the person's changing, I have to change for that person. And if you don't have tools, I call it like having tools in your toolbox. Like you got to have director tools, because we're human. Everybody's different. It's never going to be the same. And that's the drive for me. That's the coolest thing. To get that person and take a cool picture. Nobody cares more about, like when I put that my lens at somebody, I don't think there's anything at that moment that could be more important than what's going on right there for people. Like it's a big deal. It's powerful. They get it. And some people want to get out of there, and some people, like CEOs that are busy and have busy schedules, are like, okay, did you get it? I'm like one shot. I got to go. I had one guy, I had a lawyer, came in, one picture, all right, got to go, bye. Left. I was like, I hope that's a good one. I was like, yay, they paid me. I was like, fine. But normally what I'm trying to do is capture that person. Like not only capture them in terms of a look, but capture them in terms of slowing them down, making them go, whoa, this is different. This isn't like going to this is interesting. A lot of time, my favorite thing is when the CEOs call their assistants, say, hey, can you move that meeting back an extra half hour? I need an extra half hour with Peter. That's amazing. That's so cool. And it happens all the time because I generally try and give people a good time, and I try to give them an experience instead of just giving them a picture.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good place to end it. Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Cool.
It's been
Thanks
a lot of fun learning a little bit more about you.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's cool. It's good. It's fun to be able to mess with people and tinker with their faces,